Why fire doesn't actually burn. What Feynman uncovered will melt your brain. You think you understand fire. You've seen it 1,000 times. You've lit candles, started campfires, watched flames dance in a fireplace. You know fire burns things. Fire destroys. Fire consumes. Fire turns wood into ash, paper into smoke, buildings into ruins. That's just what fire does, right? It burns. But here's what's going to completely destroy everything you think you know about. One of the most fundamental forces in your daily life. Fire doesn't burn anything. Fire doesn't even touch anything. Fire isn't even really there. What you call fire is something so strange, so completely different from what your brain tells you, that once you understand what's actually happening, you'll never look at a flame the same way again. Right now, strike a match. Watch that little flame appear. You see fire, right? You see this hot, bright, dancing thing that you know will burn you if you get too close. But what you're actually looking at isn't fire. You're looking at excited gas molecules releasing photons. You're seeing a chemical reaction happening in real time. You're witnessing matter-changing states, electrons jumping between energy levels, and your brain constructing the illusion of something called fire out of pure electromagnetic activity. There's no fire there. There's no burning. There's just chemistry and physics creating the most convincing magic trick in the universe. This isn't word games. This isn't semantic trickery. This is fundamental physics that changes everything about how you understand combustion, heat, energy, and the nature of chemical reactions. Richard Feynman understood this better than almost anyone. He spent his career teaching people that the most obvious things are usually the most wrong, and few things seem more obvious than fire burning things. But fire doesn't burn. Oxygen burns. Or more precisely, things burn in oxygen. Fire is just the light show. Let me break this down for you, and I guarantee it's going to change how you think about every flame you've ever seen. When you light that match, here's what's actually happening. The match head contains chemicals that react with oxygen in the air. This reaction releases energy, lots of energy. This energy excites the molecules around the reaction site, making them move faster, making them hotter. Some of this energy is released as heat, some as light. The light is what you see. The heat is what you feel. But there's no fire doing any burning. There's just a chemical reaction releasing energy, and your senses interpreting that energy as flame. But it gets weirder. The flame you see, that dancing, flickering thing, isn't a thing at all. It's a region of space where a chemical reaction is happening. It's like trying to point to running, or singing, or thinking. You can't hold fire. You can't bottle flame, because fire isn't a substance. It's a process. It's a verb pretending to be a noun. It's chemistry in action, not a thing that acts on chemistry. Think about what this means. You've been taught that fire burns wood. But fire doesn't burn anything because fire isn't anything to do any burning. What actually happens is this. Wood contains carbon and hydrogen. When heated to its ignition temperature, wood starts reacting with oxygen in the air. This reaction breaks down the wood's molecular structure, combining carbon with oxygen to make carbon dioxide, combining hydrogen with oxygen to make water vapor. The energy that was stored in the wood's chemical bonds gets released as heat and light. The wood disappears, the energy appears, and you call this process fire. But here's where your intuition really breaks down. You think fire moves from the match to the wood, like fire is spreading, like it's a thing that travels. Wrong. The chemical reaction moves. The heat moves. The conditions for combustion spread from one area to another, but there's no fire moving because there's no fire to move. It's like saying running spread from one person to another. Running doesn't spread. People start running. Fire doesn't spread. Things start reacting with oxygen. Let's go deeper. What you see as flame, that bright, hot, dancing light, is actually glowing gas. When the chemical reaction happens, it creates extremely hot gases. These gases are so hot that their molecules are moving incredibly fast, colliding with each other, getting excited to higher energy states. When these excited molecules drop back to lower energy states, they release photons, light. The flame you see is literally hot gas glowing because it's too excited not to glow. Different chemicals glow different colors when they're excited. Sodium glows yellow-orange. Copper glows green. Potassium glows purple. That's why different materials burn with different colored flames. It's not that different fires have different colors. It's that different chemicals release different wavelengths of light when their electrons get excited by the heat of the chemical reaction. The flame color tells you what's burning, not what's doing the burning. Now here's where Feynman's insight becomes crucial. He understood that our language tricks us into thinking about processes as things. We say fire burns like fire is an agent, like it's doing something to something else. But that's like saying speed travels or color paints. Speed doesn't travel. Things travel at speed. Color doesn't paint. Things have color. Fire doesn't burn. Things burn, and we call the process fire. This linguistic confusion leads to profound misunderstandings about how the world works. People think fire needs to be fed because they think fire is a thing that eats fuel. But fire isn't a thing, and it doesn't eat anything. Chemical reactions need reactants. The reaction between organic matter and oxygen needs more organic matter and more oxygen to continue. There's no fire creature that needs feeding. There's just chemistry that needs ingredients. People think fire goes out when you remove oxygen because they think fire needs oxygen to survive, like fire is alive. But fire isn't alive, and it doesn't need anything to survive. The chemical reaction between fuel and oxygen stops when you remove oxygen because you've removed one of the reactants. No oxygen, no reaction. No reaction, no energy release. No energy release. No hot, glowing gases. No hot, glowing gases. No flame. The fire doesn't die. The chemistry just stops. Here's another way your intuition fails you completely. You think fire is hot. Fire makes things hot. Fire radiates heat. But fire isn't hot, because fire isn't anything to have a temperature. The chemical reaction releases energy. Some of that energy makes nearby molecules move faster, which we interpret as heat. Some of that energy excites atoms to release photons, which we interpret as light. The reaction itself doesn't have a temperature. Energy doesn't have a temperature. Only matter has temperature, and fire isn't matter. Let's examine what happens when you burn your finger. You think fire burned you, but fire didn't touch you, because fire can't touch anything. What happened is that the heat energy released by the chemical reaction made the molecules in your skin move so fast that they started breaking chemical bonds, damaging tissue, causing pain. The flame never contacted your skin. The energy from the chemical reaction was transferred to your skin through electromagnetic radiation and molecular collisions. You got burned by energy, not by fire. This brings us to one of the most profound implications of understanding what fire really is. Heat transfer. You think fire heats things by touching them, like fire reaches out and makes things hot. But heat doesn't travel from fire to other things, because fire isn't a thing to transfer heat from. Energy moves from regions of high energy to regions of low energy. The chemical reaction creates high energy conditions. This energy spreads to surrounding areas through radiation, conduction, and convection. The energy moves, not fire. The excited molecules release electromagnetic waves that carry energy away from the reaction site. This energy hits other objects and makes their molecules move faster, heating them up. Conduction. Fast-moving hot molecules bump into slower-moving cooler molecules, transferring kinetic energy, spreading heat through direct molecular contact. Convection. Hot gases rise because they're less dense, carrying energy upward and outward, heating things they encounter. In all three cases, it's energy moving, not fire moving. But here's where it gets really weird. The flame you see isn't even where the actual burning is happening. The visible flame is slightly above and around the actual chemical reaction zone. What you see as fire is the hot gases that have already been created by the reaction, gases that are now cooling down and releasing the excess energy as light. The real action, the actual combustion, is happening in a thin layer right at the surface of the fuel, where fuel molecules are meeting oxygen molecules and reacting. The pretty flame you watch is just the aftermath, the exhaust, the waste light from chemical reactions that already happened. This is why you can stick your hand through the top of a candle flame without getting severely burned. The actual chemical reaction is happening down near the wick, where the wax vapor is meeting oxygen. up at the top of the flame is just hot gases cooling down and glowing. Still hot enough to hurt, but not hot enough to cause immediate severe damage because the actual energy-releasing reaction isn't happening there. Now, let's talk about what fire really tells us about the nature of matter and energy. Einstein taught us that matter and energy are interchangeable, E equals mc squared. But most people think of this as abstract physics, something that only matters in nuclear reactions or exotic physics experiments. Wrong. Every time you light a match, you're witnessing matter-energy conversion in action. The chemical bonds in the fuel contain stored energy. When those bonds break and reform with oxygen, the stored energy is released as light and heat. Matter isn't being destroyed, but its structure is changing, and the energy that held it together is being released. What you call burning is actually rapid oxidation. Slow oxidation is what we call rusting. Iron rusts when it reacts with oxygen over time, forming iron oxide. Wood burns when it reacts with oxygen quickly, forming carbon dioxide and water vapor. Same basic process, different speeds. Rust doesn't glow because the reaction happens slowly, releasing energy gradually. Burning glows because the reaction happens fast, releasing energy quickly enough to excite gas molecules to visible light levels. This means that burning and rusting are the same fundamental process. Your car is burning, just very slowly. The difference between a forest fire and a rusty nail is reaction speed, not reaction type. Time changes everything. Speed up rusting and you get fire. Slow down burning and you get rust. There's no fundamental difference between them. They're both oxidation reactions, releasing stored chemical energy. Here's something that will blow your mind. You are burning right now. Your cells are combining glucose with oxygen to release energy for cellular processes. This is called cellular respiration, and it's literally a controlled burn happening inside your body. The glucose burns, releasing energy that powers your muscles, your brain, your heart. You're a walking combustion engine, burning fuel to create the energy needed for life. The only difference between you and a campfire is that your burning is controlled, slow, and happens inside cells that know how to harness the energy safely. But you don't glow when you burn glucose because the reaction is controlled and the energy is captured efficiently by your cellular machinery. If your cellular respiration were as fast and uncontrolled as wood burning in air, you would literally catch fire. You'd glow. You'd burn up in seconds. The fact that you don't is a testament to billions of years of evolution learning how to burn fuel safely and efficiently. This brings us to another profound realization. What we call fire is just uncontrolled combustion. What we call life is controlled combustion. The difference between being alive and being on fire is control, not chemistry. Same reactions, different management. Life figured out how to burn without flames, how to extract energy without destruction, how to combust constructively instead of destructively. Let's think about what this means for energy itself. You think fire creates energy, makes energy, produces energy. Wrong. Fire doesn't create energy because fire isn't a thing that can create anything. Energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. The chemical reaction we call burning transforms stored chemical energy into kinetic energy, heat, and electromagnetic energy, light. The energy was always there, stored in the chemical bonds of the fuel. The reaction just releases it, changes its form, makes it available. This is why you can't burn things in space. Not because there's no fire in space, but because there's no oxygen in space. The chemical reaction that releases energy requires oxygen. No oxygen, no reaction. No reaction, no energy release. No energy release, no hot glowing gases. No hot glowing gases, no flame. It's not that fire can't survive in space. It's that the chemistry that creates what we call fire can't happen without oxygen. But here's a thought that should completely change how you think about the universe. If burning is just rapid oxidation, if fire is just excited gas molecules glowing, if flames are just electromagnetic energy being released by chemical reactions, then what you call fire is happening everywhere, all the time, at different scales and speeds. Stars are burning hydrogen into helium, releasing energy as light and heat. They're cosmic campfires, fusion reactions, creating the same kind of energy release you see in a match, just using different fuel and different reaction mechanisms. Your car engine burns gasoline using controlled explosions to push pistons, converting chemical energy into mechanical energy into kinetic energy. Same principle as a wood fire, just engineered and controlled and harnessed for useful work. Power plants burn coal or oil or natural gas, using the heat to boil water, using the steam to turn turbines, using the mechanical energy to generate electricity. All of it is combustion. All of it is oxidation. All of it is the same fundamental process you see when you light a candle. The sun, your car, your body, a forest fire, a candle flame, they're all doing the same thing. Breaking chemical bonds, releasing stored energy, transforming matter from one form to another. The difference is scale, speed, and control, not fundamental process. The universe is burning everywhere, at every level, in every possible way. What you call fire is just a version you can see with naked eyes. Now, here's where Feynman's teaching becomes really important. Understanding that fire isn't a thing changes how you think about cause and effect, about agents and actions, about what's really happening in chemical reactions. Fire doesn't cause burning. Chemical reactions cause the phenomena we call fire. Fire doesn't spread. Conditions for combustion spread. Fire doesn't consume fuel. Chemical reactions consume reactants and produce products. This isn't just academic precision. This understanding changes how you approach fire safety, how you think about energy, how you understand the relationship between matter and energy. If you know that fire is just a chemical reaction requiring fuel, oxygen, and heat, you can prevent fire by removing any one of those three requirements. Remove fuel, remove oxygen, or remove heat, and the reaction stops. There's no fire to put out because there was no fire to begin with, just chemistry that you can interrupt. Water puts out fires not because water fights fire, but because water absorbs heat energy, cooling the reaction site below the ignition temperature. Remove enough heat, and the chemical reaction stops. No reaction, no glowing gases, no flame. Carbon dioxide puts out fires not because it kills fire, but because it displaces oxygen, removing one of the necessary reactants. No oxygen, no reaction, no flame. But here's the most profound implication of all this. If what you call fire is just energy being released from matter, if burning is just chemistry, if flames are just excited molecules glowing, then the boundary between living and non-living, between organic and inorganic, between matter and energy, becomes much less clear than you thought. You are a chemical reaction that learned how to maintain itself. You are burning that learned how to be controlled. You are fire that learned how to think. The energy that powers your thoughts is the same energy that powers a campfire, just organized differently, controlled differently, used differently. The distinction between you and fire isn't fundamental. It's organizational. This should change how you think about your place in the universe. You're not separate from the physical processes around you. You're a continuation of them. The chemistry that burns wood is related to the chemistry that powers your brain. The energy that lights up the sky in a forest fire is related to the energy that lights up your consciousness when you think. You're not witnessing fire from the outside. You're fire that became conscious of itself. So the next time you light a candle, watch a campfire, or see flames dancing, remember what you're really looking at. You're watching rapid oxidation release stored chemical energy. You're seeing excited gas molecules emit electromagnetic radiation. You're witnessing matter and energy transform from one form to another. You're observing the same fundamental chemistry that powers your own cells, that lights up stars, that drives the energy cycles of the entire planet. There's no fire there. There's just chemistry. Chemistry so elegant, so fundamental, so powerful that it creates the illusion of fire, the appearance of flames, the sensation of burning. And once you understand that illusion, once you see through the magic trick, the reality becomes more amazing than the illusion ever was. Fire doesn't burn, chemistry transforms, energy moves, matter changes form. And your brain creates the beautiful, convincing, completely false impression that something called fire is doing something called burning. The truth is stranger, more elegant, and more wonderful than the comfortable lie your senses tell you. That's not comfort. That's not familiarity. That's truth. And the truth about fire reveals the truth about everything. The universe is chemistry in action, energy in motion, matter in constant transformation. And you get to witness it, understand it, and be part of it all at the same time. What you call fire is what you call life, is what you call the universe doing what it does, turning matter into energy, energy into motion, motion into the complex, beautiful, temporary patterns we call reality. And that's not nothing. That's everything.